Hello, so it's time for another transfer roundup. It's time to go over what has been going on over Christmas and the New Year in terms of our transfers for Tier 3, Tier 2 and Tier 1. Tier 1 being the Overwatch League, Tier 2 being Contenders, and Tier 3 being Open Division and places like that, and collegiate and college and things like that. Let's get into this. We're divided up into regions as ever. We will finish off with the Overwatch League because generally we have covered what's in the Overwatch League in other videos, so that's why we do that way. We are going to start off with two in the other category. That's what I'm going to call this. So first of all, this is Mickey, the tank player that used to be formerly with the Dallas Fuel and Envious. He was with Team Envy as a content creator. He's left them as a content creator now, no longer assigned to Envy at all. I wish Mickey all the best going forward. He's a great soul, Mickey. He really is. Really lovely person. First winner of the Dennis Elko Award in the Overwatch League, and he thoroughly deserved that. So I wish him all the best going forward. And then we have the Swedish tank player Knassen, who will be retiring from Overwatch. He was unassigned, wasn't with a team. Clearly he's found it difficult to find a team, and he will be retiring, so I wish him all the best going forward. Then we flip over to China for one move there. This is where we see the Korean tank player Yahoo leaving Bilibili Gaming, and he will no longer be assigned. I wish him all the best in trying to find another team, whether that be in Korea or China or elsewhere. And then we see one team making moves in Brazil. This is, or South America I should say, this is Petitos. Petitos have made some big moves, and the reason Petitos have made some big moves is I believe Petitos have disbanded. After this gauntlet on the 22nd of December, they disbanded, which is unfortunate. We've seen Petitos around for a little while now. But this means they've let go of their Argentinian support player Kaisak, their Peru support player H-Bo, their Argentinian tank player is Avenge, and then their Canadian tank player De Hillen. They'll no longer be assigned, and I wish them all the best in trying to find new teams, and one day hopefully we may see that little duck back again in Petitos. But now we're going to move to our chunky regions. Our chunky regions this week are Europe, Korea, and Korea, mainly Korea because all the Korean transfers, and then North America. Those are our chunky regions, and then we finish off with the Overwatch League. So let's start off in the EU, in Europe. Here we will start off with a retirement though. This is the Dutch support player Kara, who was playing for Exoblivion. He will be retiring from Overwatch, obviously moving on to another game or to other life interests. I wish him all the best going forward, and I hope he does well in whatever he goes to. Then we have two out old on board. This is the French support player Barots and the Bulgarian tank player Boga. They're leaving old on board and will no longer be assigned. I wish them all the best in finding a new team. Then we have a move at Hurricane, the British Hurricane. This is them letting go of the American coach Albion. A bit of a surprise, he's no longer assigned. We expected most of the coaching staff and the players to go up to the London Spitfire. Albion is not going to have that opportunity, which is rather interesting. Again, we will be talking about London Spitfire in a bit, but yeah, a little bit of a surprise this one. It goes hand in hand with the Hurricane announcement that we will talk about in a minute. First of all, we have a movement at New Kings. This is the Finnish support player, I should say, Yofi. He is leaving New Kings and he will be retiring. I think that's a little bit of a shame, really. I think Yofi is actually a really good support player, and deserved a shot at the Overwatch League. And unfortunately, he's not going to get that now. I wish him all the best in his retirement and whatever he goes on to do. Then we have Danit. So this is the Swedish DPS player for British Hurricane, part of the dominant Danit Sparker duo that has been on top for Hurricane throughout this year, or throughout last year I should say now. He is leaving the Hurricane and no longer assigned, which is a bit of a surprise considering we were expecting most of the Hurricane to be promoted, if not all of the Hurricane to be promoted on London Spitfire. He was eligible for the Hurricane, whereas Sparker isn't. So this is a surprise. Major surprise. If it's a debate, I'll be frustrated. So yeah, interesting one. And I guess this coming week will show us exactly what the Spitfire are doing, with Nuki making an announcement and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but yeah, we'll see what goes on here. And then lastly in Europe we have the Norwegian coach Glatzo1 leaving 4th Dimension, and he will no longer be assigned. He will be retiring as well. I wish him all the best going forward into whatever he does. It's been a bit of a nasty one in Europe. Over the festive period. There's been, as many retirements as there have been releases. It's nothing in at all. But that's kind of where we are at the moment. With the Overwatch League, it's all ins. With the Contenders season being over, Gauntlet being over, it's all outs generally. That's what happens at this time of year. But now let's swing over to Korea, shall we, to spice things up. Let's go to Runaway. They are letting go of Coach Gyul Tak. He will no longer be assigned. Runaway looking for a new coach to go alongside the staff they already have. Runaway, it's been a fairly consistent but silverware-less year. So they missed out on the gauntlet again, coming 3rd place. Not ideal, losing to Team CC and Gen.G in the end, actually. Not ideal for Runaway, but they will come back strong. Runaway always do. Then we have another move. This is Team Diamond letting go of their coach Butuk. I butchered that. He's no longer assigned, and I wish him all the best in finding a new team. There's another 2 moves coming up at Team Diamond in a minute. Then we see more moves at GC Busan Wave. This is them letting go of their manager Biola, their support Dotori, and their DPS player Snake. They will all be leaving GC Busan Wave and will no longer be assigned. I wish them all the best in finding new teams. Then we have the Korean DPS player Arrow leaving Talon Esports. He will no longer be assigned either. Again, few changes going on here. Talon, they've had some players joined. Talon did much better than expected last year, and I think it's to be expected that some of these players are going to jig around a bit. It would be interesting to see what Talon field for 2021 to try and maintain their good form in Korea, despite the surprising results them coming from the Pacific earlier in 2020. After this, we have the only incomer in Korea, actually. This is the Korean coach Roki, moving into T1 to take up a role there. Roki has experience from Overwatch League as a player and stuff like that, so I think it's a good pickup for T1. T1 didn't have the best of seasons. They were okay, but didn't reach the heights that they wanted to. And I'm sure they used to be Fusion University, if you didn't know. So I'm sure they'll be wanting to do pretty well going into 2021, and Roki will be a big part of that as their coach. Now, then we move on. Team Diamond, I did say we were going to come across them again. So, Alpha Yi and Half are two players moving out of Team Diamond. Half is a Korean support player, and Alpha Yi is a Korean DPS player. They'll be moving out of Team Diamond and will no longer be assigned. I wish them all the best in them finding new homes. And we actually move on to 2 big changes. So, these moves are at O2 Blast. This is them letting go of 2 players, 2 rather experienced players. So this is their 2 tanks. Their Korean tank Kalios, who has a lot of experience, and main tank Kaiser. So, Kaiser. It's a rough one for him, isn't it? We've always thought he's going to get a shot at the Overwatch League at some point, and now he's been dropped from O2 Blast. Starting out a Runaway. He's had a rough time of it, and it looks like maybe Kaiser will be one of the big names not to get a chance at the Overwatch League, which will be fairly devastating, I think, for a lot of people. Kaiser has been a name that has just been linked with the Overwatch League and getting his chance for a long time, and it's never actually come about. But we will see what happens with Kaiser and Kalios, and we'll see if they get another place. But the last move in Korea will be Kwasid, who is leaving Gen.G and will no longer be assigned the Korean support, and I wish him all the best in finding a new team in that region or wherever he wishes to go. Now we move over to North America, though, as we finish off the final of our Tier 2, Tier 3 lookouts before we move over to the Overwatch League. So, we start off with Dark Mode NA, who are letting go of the American tank Yeetle. I wish them all the best in finding a new team. Dark Mode have done very well on the gauntlet, much better than expected under the leadership of J-Mac and Muma, would you believe? And we will see if Dark Mode NA stick around for the NA Contenders season in 2021 and see if they can do anything there. I would be surprised if they didn't, considering how well they did in the gauntlet, but we will see. Then we have the American support player Fix leaving Revival. I wish him all the best in finding a new team. We have the American support player Momentum leaving Odyssey. He will no longer be assigned, and I wish him all the best in finding a new team. Another movement at Revival will see the American DPS player Aspire leaving Revival. Again, there'll be a lot of changes. Revival had a rough gauntlet, so it's expected that they will be changing things up, shall we say, in this off-season until they get into the new season in 2021. We have 2 moves at Quara. This is them letting go of the American tank player, the American support player, I should say, Far, and the American tank player Shiz. They will both be no longer assigned, and I wish them all the best going forward. Then moving to the collegiate sort of area, or the college sort of area, we have an American tank player, SZNS, moving in to become part of Northwood University. I'm sure we will be seeing them either the Open Division Contenders Trials or Contenders in the coming year, considering this is one that's going to be on the list for this transfer roundup. And yeah, it's the only movement in America, so it's nice to see at least someone moving in. We'll get to the ins in a minute because we're going to go to the Overwatch League. But then we have the Dutch DPS player Tap. He'll be leaving the Uprising Academy. I'll get there in a minute. He's leaving the Uprising Academy, and I wish him all the best in his search for a new team. Back to Revival, as we see the Canadian DPS player Razor leaving his inactive role at Revival and becoming unassigned. He's been loaned out to several different teams recently across NA Contenders, so yeah, it's not too surprising to see Revival letting him go. Next up is Last Hope, where we see them letting go of the Canadian DPS player Noxious. He will no longer be assigned, and I wish him all the best in finding a new team. We swing back over to Dark Mode NA, who will let go of the Danish tank player Doge. He will no longer be assigned, and I wish him all the best in finding a new team. And lastly, in North America, we see the Korean DPS player Decall leaving Drifters, and he will no longer be assigned, and I wish him all the best in finding a new team. And I say that a lot during these videos, but now we move over to the Overwatch League for our final part of this, and it's going to be interesting. So, first of all, we see that the French coach Get Amazed is moving from his head coach role at Drifters to become head coach of the Paris Eternal. So, that sounds pretty cool to me. Drifters have been okay. I don't think it will be the level of coaching that the London Spitfire will have available to them, but I still think it's a fairly okay person to be getting in. Plus, I don't think the Paris Eternal roster is horrific. I think it's okay, it's serviceable. Then we move to the NYXL, who brought in a load of people. So, they brought in the Korean DPS player Flora from Team Diamond. They have brought in the Korean DPS player Gwangboon from Team Cat in China. They have brought in the Korean DPS player Feather from Talon Esports in Korea. They have brought in the Korean DPS player Ivy. He was unassigned. He was at the Philadelphia Fusion last year. That's a pretty darn good pickup if you ask me. Then they brought in 2 people for their management, and their Korean management unknown, and the Korean coach Skix, who was at the London Spitfire last year. So he has a little bit of Overwatch League experience, which I'm sure will benefit them quite well. And lastly, we round off with the 2 moves out of the London Spitfire. This is them promoting the Danish coach Fischer, who used to be a DPS player in Contenders, very much deserves a chance at the Overwatch League. Well, he's going to get it now in a little different role. He was a head coach of British Hurricane. He's now assistant coach at the London Spitfire, working with Commander X, who was at British Hurricane, and obviously Reprise, who was at the Los Angeles Valiant and Revival, amongst others. So that will be the coaching staff for the London Spitfire. And then to round it off, they sign the American DPS player Blase, who will be their flex DPS. Whether he has a bench role or a main role, we will remain to see. But he's coming into the London Spitfire as their first signing of this transfer window, and also their first ever non-Korean player. So that's very, very interesting, and a monumental step for the Spitfire in this new look London that we are going to see for 2021. But that is it. That is going to be it for this one. This is round us up for the festive period, and now we will get in to see what London have got in store for the rest of this week, which I am believing there's going to be quite a bit. And hopefully by the end of the week we might just know what this London Spitfire looks like, which is going to be pretty interesting, I think. And then we will continue going with the rest of the news. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.